Our headlines today. EU calls for the immediate cessation of hostilities in its new resolution condemning the Ethiopian government for unlawful detention of Tigrayans and closing Tigrayan-owned businesses, and the use of hate speech by its officials, says the humanitarian crisis is entirely preventable. Association for Health Professionals in Tigray announces that over 30 health professionals were killed by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces as well as Amhara militia in the past year. Hello, I'm here with the hour's news. I'm Ernie Mana, who will be reading the news for you. Stay tuned. Let's now proceed to the details. The EU Parliament passed a resolution on October 7 calling for the immediate cessation of hostilities by all parties. This resolution also demands wide-ranging sanctions on all parties to the conflict. The resolution calls for member states to halt exports of arms and surveillance technology to Ethiopia that may be used to commit human rights violation in the conflict in Tigray. It calls on warring parties to guarantee unfettered access to independent human rights monitors and investigators, including investigators from the UN and African Union. The resolution elaborated that the 11-month conflict has triggered human-induced crisis, and this wide-scale human suffering is entirely preventable. In addition to that, it highlighted that the Ethiopian authorities have arbitrarily detained ethnic Tigrayans in Ethiopia's capital, and have committed other abuses against them, such as closing Tigrayan-owned businesses, whereas incitement to hatred and discrimination and rising levels of inflammatory anti-Tigray rhetoric are evident throughout Ethiopia, including by high-level government officials. The parliament stated its disappointment that the UN security is yet to address the situation in Tigray and asked member states to press the UN Security Council to hold regular public meetings on Tigray, to take decisive actions to ensure unhindered humanitarian access to safeguard the protection of civilians and end grave violation of the international law. Tigray Health Professionals Association released a statement this past week highlighting the damage caused on Tigray's health system by the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their allies, and its impact on the people of Tigray. The statement also disclosed that 30 health professionals had been killed by the forces in the past year. Reporter Abel Tsagabu has more on this.
Tigray Health Professionals Association released a statement this past week, announcing that 30 health professionals had been killed by Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Amhara forces. The statement condemned the destruction and looting of health facilities, putting the lives of millions of children and mothers at risk, and said it was done with genocidal intent. The statement also added that the siege has put the lives of millions of Tigrayans in danger, and a collapsed health system that cannot address the needs of many vulnerable groups, including survivors of sexual violence. The association called on the international community to take immediate action to ensure that the millions in need of food and medical assistance are able to get access.
As food stocks and medical supplies are depleted and emergency aid unavailable, many in Tigray are facing man-made famine that is threatening the lives of millions. Qolla Tembin is one of the many districts highly affected, with local officials already confirming the death of 16 people due to starvation. Reporter Winta Kidana has more on this.
Alganish Gabriel is a resident of Yair in Qolla Tembin. She runs a household of 9 but says she hasn't been able to feed her family. She says everything her and her family owned were either destroyed or looted by the Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers.
We weren't rich, but everything we had was taken by the enemy soldiers. Our animals, the tools we use at home, even the smallest jug was taken. We are living in an empty house. We couldn't even get good night's sleep before our brothers came and liberated us. We used to run and hide. We felt homeless. Now we don't have any food or clothes. We're not living like human beings.
They left nothing. They even took our caps. Our animals are butchered. What can I say? We are left with walls, an empty house. We are hungry. Everybody is trying to survive by drinking water because there is nothing else.
Zafu is Alganesh's daughter. She says she misses school dearly, but the idea of going back seems like a luxury now, as she is seeing her family starve.
I won't be able to go back to school because the invaders burnt it down. I wish things would go back to normal so I could keep learning and help my family and my country.
Administrator of the district explains that so far, more than 16 people, including 3 children, had passed away due to starvation in Yair.
We have confirmed the death of 16 people due to starvation in this district, 7 from Yakir, 5 from Tsabo, and 4 from Chomai. All the children that passed away are from Yakir. The rest were adults. This is all because of the invaders.
Data made available by UN OCHA says that nearly 1 million people in Tigray are facing famine-like conditions, as 5.3 million are in need of emergency medical assistance.
Ida Referral Hospital is running out of stock for medical supplies and leaving patients and medical supplies worried about the future. Auraha Gauratinsai has more on this.
Almost 10 months passed since war broke out in Tigray on November 4, 2020. The conflict has been marked with unspeakable atrocities, including massacres, weaponized rape, and other crimes against humanity. Many people left their home empty-handed and are now gathered at IDP camps in different cities across the region. Schools, hospitals, and residences have been destroyed by Ethiopian and Eritrean troops throughout the region. The Globe, citing MSF, reported that 13 of 106 health facilities are functioning at normal capacity. The majority have been looted, vandalized, and captured by soldiers. The status of health centers has deteriorated through time due to blockage of roads to Tigray. Hospitals have run out of medicines, and patients with acute and chronic diseases are in severe illness, and many are dying from lack of medication. The situation in Tigray worsened when the federal government blocked access to humanitarian aid since June 28, 2021, after the Tigray forces took control of Mekelle, the capital of Tigray. Deaths continue to be reported due to lack of medical care. Hiwot Berhe is resident of Woreda Embalaje, Tabia Aiba. She says in despair that she was a mother of 3 daughters. She lost one of her daughters in airstrike by the Ethiopian troops on 18th November 2020 and got her remaining 2 daughters severely wounded.
It was on 18th November 2020 that these 3 young daughters of mine were stricken by jet from the Ethiopian troops. One of my daughters, 8 years old, Arsema Berha, soon passed away as the bombardment left her stomach burst out. This one is severely injured, with 3 of her fingers cut off and her left leg broken. She has undergone surgery on her stomach. She has a lot of injuries on her bodies. This is Billion Berha. She is also disabled because of injuries on her right leg.
After her children received first aid by volunteers, Hiwot brought them to Eider Hospital in Mekelle, where they received medical care, but are now suffering from lack of medication.
I feel like these 2 disabled children are better than the dead one. But at present, the hospital has run out of medical supplies like metals to fix the broken bones. The doctors say we have to wait patiently. There are no medicines and medical equipment to be brought from private pharmacies.
Hiwot says her children could not recover from their wounds as they are not getting enough food.
I couldn't get enough money to feed my children so that they can heal their broken bones. They are suffering from lack of food in a way that is even worse than the wounds they have suffered. I am about to lose hope because I have no idea how to feed my children.
I spent sleepless nights and feeling helpless and weak.
Patients with chronic diseases at either hospital share the same fate, as medical supplies have started to run out and stock are completely depleted. Patients are unable to get the medication as their medical condition continues to deteriorate from time to time.
أراويت كذا يرخون نركب زلنا بسنك ماني بسنك أي همدن بسنك إسحاق أفورقني.
Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki have done this to us. This is not just a problem. This is hell. People are suffering, going here and there searching for medicine at every pharmacy they can find, but no avail.
Parents of children with chronic diseases are frustrated and feeling helpless. This mother is worrying about the condition of her daughter who is suffering from lack of medication and hunger.
My daughter has been in severe pain. She is a diabetic patient, but she has no medicine, no food. We are sentenced to death for mere fact that we are Tigrayans.
Tigray had one of the best healthcare systems in Ethiopia before the beginning of the conflict, but the destruction of health facilities and lack of medical supplies due to the siege has made it impossible for patients to receive the necessary care. Tigrayans continue to face unimaginable horrors as banks, electric power, fuel and roads remain closed into the state. If the situation in Tigray continues like what is now, humanitarian organizations have warned that we should prepare to oversee a catastrophic humanitarian crisis which is far worse than what's happening now.
In similar news, Eider Hospital is unable to provide proper medical treatment for children suffering from malnutrition. Reporter Fani Lemuru has more.
As the siege on Tigray continues and essential like medical supplies and food items are prevented from reaching Tigray, child malnutrition rates are showing unprecedented rise.
I came here with my 2-year-old child. First, I thought it was diarrhea, but the doctors here said it was malnutrition and shortage of food. My son has been receiving treatment now for the past 2 weeks.
Back at the house, my son was having trots, and I thought it was just diarrhea. So I waited for a month, treating him at home using traditional medication. After that, I noticed that his body started to swell, so I took him to Kwiha Hospital. The doctors there said my son was suffering from malnutrition, and they sent me here to Eider Hospital.
Parents say that their children are getting better because of the treatment that they are getting in the hospital. And they also asked governmental and non-governmental aid organizations for help so that their children will be fully healed and other children who are malnourished could be treated.
Thanks to God, my son is doing well now. The swelling has improved and his appetite is better now. But I am worried because I know that once we go back home, I won't have anything to feed him. There is no food or milk that I can give him. It's very difficult.
The world should ignore the Ethiopian government and its false reports. Instead, they should come here to see for themselves what's happening here and help the children in need.
Takhlaab Gabramariam, a nurse at Eider Hospital, says 8 children had died due to malnutrition at this hospital alone.
In just 1 month, we have had 44 infants receiving treatment for malnutrition. That's more than we have ever had at the hospital. Since the start of the conflict, we haven't had sufficient supplies required to give proper treatment. That's why the children are dying.
Takhlaab says the impact of the siege, should it continue, will be horrific and its impacts unimaginable.
After 2 or 3 weeks, we will have completely run out of stock. The world should take note of this and take decisive action.
Mechanized farming was just one of the many sectors in Tigray that had been showing a steady and promising increase before the start of the conflict in November. Our reporters were on the ground in Raya Azul to observe the Desta Berha vegetable and fruit farm, one of the many looted and destroyed by Ethiopian forces. Reporter Abel Tsagawu has more on this.
Desta Berha Vegetables and Fruits Farm was established in 2004 in Raya Azobo on 50,000 hectares of land to be developed using modern technology and provide hundreds of job opportunities. Takhlai Desta, deputy manager for the company, said that the company was producing more than 38 types of vegetables and fruits for market before it was destroyed by the Ethiopian forces.
We have a modern greenhouse on 6 hectares of land. 4 of them were about to start work before the war broke out. We had nursery on the half of the hectare, and the rest of the farm we were using drip irrigation, producing more than 38 types of fruit and vegetables,
including its newly imported technologies for the expansion of a greenhouse. The deputy manager says all administrative equipment was looted and vandalized.
Preliminary findings of the experts indicate that we have lost over 900 million birr.
Residents of Raya Azabo say that in addition to creating job opportunities, the company had a big role in improving the economy. The residents also say the Ethiopian forces also destroyed a mill house built by the company for the town's residents.
If it was really just the government they wanted to attack, there would have been no reason to destroy and vandalize this company. It's private owned. If it was the government they had a problem with, they could have dealt with it on the battlefield, but instead they've taken it out on civilians and civilian property. They said it was juntas and destroyed it, but the mill was built for the people. What kind of government destroys public property? They didn't come to govern. They were just aggressors. A bad government made this happen. We are poor again. All the employees that worked at the company are now elsewhere. For example, I have a house of 4 rooms. It used to be the employees that used to rent them, but they have all left now. So I have no any tenants. Their intention is to cleanse us. Our aim should be self-defense. We preach peace. We preach love. We also want peace for all people. I call all Tigrayans to work together to rehabilitate Tigray's economy.
Since the start of the conflict in November, thousands of Tigrayans across the country have been unlawfully detained, then their homes searched and their businesses abruptly closed. Human rights organizations and the media have reported the ethnic profiling, the illegal detention and the closing of business that has rapidly increased since the end of June, when the Ethiopian National Defense Forces were forced to retreat from Ma'ala after a major blow by Tigrayan Defense Forces. Addis Standard spoke with some of the business owners in Addis Ababa whose business had unlawfully been closed by Ethiopian authorities. Daras Berhana has more on that.
Hannah is just one of the thousands of Tigrayan business owners whose business was closed by Ethiopian authorities. She says it was closed 4 months before it was allowed to open again 2 weeks ago. Now she says customers are afraid to come to her restaurant. They say she supports TPLF. She says she will have to close down her business and send her 5 employees homes. Caleb is also an owner of a bar in Addis Ababa. He said that his bar was closed 3 months ago and him and his brother were detained for a week after following the closing. He said that he had taken a loan to open his business that he has to continue paying off even though he has no income. Caleb also says he himself witnesses 17 other Tigrayan business owners at local administration office pleading with officials to reopen their businesses. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty and other human rights organizations have been reporting on the continued crackdown by Ethiopian authorities on Tigrayan businesses since the end of June, when Ethiopian forces were forced to retreat from Mekelle after a major blow by Tigrayan defense forces. Since the start of the conflict in November, thousands of Tigrayan-owned businesses have been shut and their homes unlawfully searched. This is in addition to thousands of Tigrayans that have been unlawfully detained and over 17,000 Tigrayan members of the Ethiopian National Defense Force that are being held in internment camps across the country.
And with that, we're going to wrap up our news today. I'm Mary Nimana from Mala Tigray. Thank you for tuning in.